When people are building a PC and come to the question of graphics, they often rack their brains on what the best GPU for their budget is. But deciding on a GPU is just the first step in deciding on a graphics card. So to make your lives easier, we're making a series of videos where we'll be offering our 2 cents on what the best models are for certain GPUs. And we'll start off with a bang, the NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1080 Ti graphics card. They're currently one of the most powerful consumer graphics card on the market, soon to be surpassed by the new RTX series from NVIDIA. But whether you're getting one of these to tackle triple-digit frame rates or enjoy 4K gaming the way it's meant to be enjoyed, it's important to pick the right model. Graphics card manufacturers are aplenty these days, and you deserve only the best. That's why we made this list of the best 6 GTX 1080 Ti graphics cards to see what the differences are. So without any further ado, let's begin. Starting off this list is a 1080 Ti graphics card made by ZOTAC. As far as graphics cards manufacturers go, this company is relatively young. But in their 12 years of business, they've established themselves as a reliable and trusted manufacturer of NVIDIA graphics cards. The GTX 1080 Ti Mini is just what it sounds like, a highly compressed variant of the powerful GPU. In fact, it's as compact as the 1080 Ti gets. It can fit in most computer cases, and thanks to the powerful dual fans, it should have enough cooling even in the most cramped cases. The exterior is minimal in order to make the airflow even better, and there isn't really much to look at aside from the 2 stripes with white LED lighting and the ZOTAC logo. With a clock speed of 1506 MHz, the Ti Mini is a bit slower than the other entries on this list, but it's definitely still 1080 Ti caliber. The only downside are the somewhat noisy cooling and the fact that having only 2 fans and placing it in a smaller case does limit the overclocking potential. Next, we have the same company's complementary version of the Mini Edition, the ZOTAC 1080 Ti AMP Edition. Unlike the Mini variant, this is a high-profile, full-sized card that's ready for some serious performance. Although it does look strikingly similar to the Mini version, but without the LED lights. It still uses only 2 fans, but this is offset by the fact that there are the company's very own Ice Storm fans that use brute force to keep the card cool. And not only are they successful, but the cooling is quiet as well. It even has a decent overclocking potential for a dual fan card. But with a base clock speed of 1569 MHz, you may not even need to overclock it. Many consider EVGA to be the best graphics cards manufacturer out there, and even if this is just a generalization, it's based on good merit. The EVGA models rarely disappoint, if ever. And while there are over a dozen variants of the GTX 1080 Ti, for this list we've singled out the FTW3 gaming model. The FTW series is distinctive among other EVGA models in that it has a higher base clock speed. This model in particular follows a function over form design philosophy, which is necessary if you're planning to deliver the higher clock speeds and increase the overclocking potential. The airflow needs to be no less than excellent for this, and it is. To this end, it uses 3 fans in conjunction with a web light pattern to increase the airflow. The effects are great, although the imposing metallic appearance won't sit well with everybody. Still, that's what allows for the 1569 MHz base clock speed with a boost clock speed of 1683 MHz. The only thing off about it could be the metallic design, but if what you're looking for is the card with the best overclocking potential, then this shouldn't really be an issue. Moving on, we have an entry from Gigabyte. It's a manufacturer that everyone should already be familiar with, and while their AORUS series of products isn't as popular as, say, ASUS's ROG line, it's not far from it either. And the 1080 Ti Xtreme Edition graphics card is a model that won't leave anyone wanting. It may look like a dual fan card at first glance, which some people may find off-putting, but fear not. It's actually a triple fan card. You see, the first and the third fans are stacked on top of the middle one. This means that you actually have 300mm fans in a card that's slightly shorter and wider than the competition. Visually speaking, the card is impressive. Just look at it. The RGB fusion lighting may not be as versatile as ASUS's AORUS Sync, but it can still display the full color spectrum and comes with 5 different effects. But the visual flair is just a little bit of extra appeal. Spec-wise, it has the best clock speed of 1607 MHz. But that's not the only thing that's setting this graphics card apart. The other thing is the VR link. The card comes with an extra front-facing HDMI, making it easy and convenient to just connect your VR headset directly to the card. The only downside we could see is that this model is very much on the expensive side. Plus, there is the size issue. It takes up 3 slots on your motherboard. Still, the overclocking potential is excellent. Up next, we have the MSI GTX 1080 Ti Gaming X Trio. As the name implies, this is a triple fan graphics card, but it doesn't use just any fans. This model uses the top quality Torx 2.0 fans with the double ball bearings that can provide optimal airflow without noise even after years of heavy use. In terms of visual design, however, the model doesn't follow the usual MSI design. Instead, it trades in the usual red exterior for a black and gray one with only minor red highlights. Couple this with the fact that the backplates have RGB stripes and the backlit MSI logo, and you're left with a graphics card that's bound to blend in better with a whole range of configurations. Spec-wise, however, there isn't much to say. It's not as fast as some competing models, but it's not slow either, with a base clock speed of 1544 MHz. All in all, it's a respectable model that's somewhere in the middle of the pack, both functionally and visually, which is still pretty impressive given that we're still talking about a GTX 1080 Ti model here. And last, but certainly not least, we have the ASUS ROG STRIX GTX 1080 Ti. If there's any graphics card manufacturer that needs no introduction, it's ASUS. The ROG STRIX GTX 1080 Ti comes with 3 high-quality dust-resistant fans and large and efficient heatsinks, making the air cooling in this graphics card one of the best ones out there. In terms of visual design, it sticks with the standard ROG line appeal. It has a highly detailed black exterior, a metal backplate, and extensive RGB lighting. But even so, the design easily blends in with most configurations. And the lighting we mentioned uses ASUS's very own AORUS Sync technology. With a full spectrum of colors and 6 different effects, this is the most versatile type of graphics card RGB lighting there is. However, it's not the fastest model, with a base clock speed of only 1518 MHz. But as you can guess, it's still one of the more expensive models for sure. So as you can see, even after deciding to go with the GTX 1080 Ti GPU, there's still a whole range of models left for you to decide from. That's why we made a few guidelines that you can follow that will lead you to your ideal pick. The first thing to consider is what kind of cooling you'll need. Generally speaking, the first choice here is to decide between air and liquid cooling. But the thing to know about liquid cooling is that it's really expensive and only necessary for heavy overclocking. We've left a link in the description for our video where we talk about liquid coolers if you want to know more about them. But for now, let's contain our dilemma between dual and triple fan solutions. Dual fans may look like they're inferior, but both solutions come with their pros and cons. Triple fan solutions have the benefits of better overclocking potential, and they're actually quieter of the two because the fans don't have to spin as quickly. But something that's often overlooked is the fact that dual fan models are actually smaller and cheaper. So if you're not big on overclocking, they can be a smarter choice. Of course, there's the hardware compatibility issue as well. It's not just about picking the graphics cards you like the most. First, you have to make sure that it's a model which is compatible with your motherboard, CPU, and PSU. Newer graphics cards use the PCI Express 3.0 slots. So if your motherboard is outdated and doesn't have one of these, it won't matter how expensive it is, you just won't be able to connect it. Also, keep size issues in mind as well. Not only are some of these models so big they're a tight fit for many towers, but some of them are so wide that they'll take up 2 or even 3 PCI Express slots. Strictly speaking, the compatibility when it comes to the CPU basically boils down to bottlenecking. You could use a GTX 1080 Ti with a Pentium processor, but you effectively won't have a GTX 1080 Ti because the CPU wouldn't be able to keep up. But it's not as scary as it sounds, and the latest Intel Core i5 and Ryzen 5 CPUs will end up bottlenecking your GPU just ever so slightly. It's definitely a viable pairing. And finally, there is the power supply. All of the entries on our list have a consumption of somewhere around 250 watts. And a 600-watt PSU will be more than enough to keep up. However, keep in mind that the power draw can dramatically increase with overclocking. And finally, there's connectivity. All of the GTX 1080 Ti variants that we've had in this video come with at least one DisplayPort, one HDMI port, and one dual-link DVI-D port. However, given the choice, we suggest steering clear of the DVI-D port. It's just outdated technology, plain and simple. Other than that, it's pretty much the same whether you decide to go with a DisplayPort or an HDMI port. DisplayPort does technically support higher refresh rates and higher resolutions, but not even these graphics cards can take advantage of it. So we'd give it a couple more years before this distinction becomes relevant. In the meantime, use whichever one is more convenient. Also, you may want to consider port distribution. If you plan on connecting a monitor via HDMI and still want to use VR, you'll need to get a graphics card with at least 2 HDMI ports. However, if you plan on running a triple monitor setup, then having 3 display ports is obviously the better choice. Now, with all of the above taken into consideration, we have to pick the ASUS ROG STRIX variant as your choice for the very best GTX 1080 Ti graphics card. There's simply no one GTX 1080 Ti variant that will be optimal for everyone, but we've chosen the ASUS model because it has the best open-air cooling, the best RGB lighting, and the fact that with 2 HDMI and 2 display ports, it should be able to fit into most configurations. But that's just our pick. Every single graphics card in this video is top-notch, and so long as you follow the guidelines and stay true to your own requirements, you can't go wrong. And there you have it, a list of the best GTX 1080 Ti models out there. The next few videos will be just like this one, but for different NVIDIA GPUs. We'll go into descending order all the way down to 1050 Ti, so if you're planning on buying an NVIDIA graphics card, then you don't want to miss these. One way to make sure you're among the first to know when these videos go live is to click on the bell icon. In the meantime, don't forget to like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this video, and as always, we'll see you next time on Gaming Scan.